Welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent over some really interesting stuff about the Nawfija Development Fund, the NDF.
Yeah, it looks like a fascinating community initiative.
Definitely. So for this deep dive, our mission really is to unpack this for everyone listening,
Yeah.
to figure out what the NDF is truly about. We've got their own materials, the About Us, governance, partnership, donate, and home pages. Lots to dig into.
Right. It gives us a pretty good window into their thinking.
Exactly. So the plan is to cut through all that info and get right to the heart of what they're doing for the Nawfija community in Nigeria. Give you the key insights.
Absolutely. And looking through these documents, what really jumps out first is, well, how it's clearly driven by the community. It's not just about, putting out fires.
Okay.
The core insight here is really their aim to build a self-sustaining future for Nawfija. That's foundational.
Okay, yeah, self-sustaining. Let's start right at the beginning again, because the NDF wasn't just created out of thin air, was it?
No, not at all.
It seems like it evolved from something else, the Nawfija Global Movement, the NGM, back in 2019.
That's right. And what's interesting is that the NGM itself kicked off because of a global crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay.
It was basically a joint effort by people connected to Nawfija, living abroad or in Nigeria, to get vital aid back home during that really tough time.
Right. But it didn't just stop with COVID relief, did it?
No, it quickly grew beyond that.
The sources show the NGM broadened out quite a bit. It became this sort of hub for funding important projects, sometimes urgent ones. And they worked closely with the official local government body, the Nawfija Progressive Union, the NPU.
Exactly. They became a key supporter for the NPU.
And they were clearly busy. The list is quite long: road construction, road maintenance, buying security vehicles, medical support, renovating schools.
Yeah, computer labs, libraries, assembly halls.
And now they're working on rebuilding the EEC market. That's a pretty impressive track record for what started as a pandemic response.
It really is. It highlights how the community could rally and take action. And if you look at the bigger picture, it kind of shows how a crisis sometimes jumpstarts things,
It pushes things forward.
Yeah, pushes the community towards more organized, maybe more long-term thinking. The NGM's success with all those different projects probably showed everyone what was possible and maybe highlighted the need for a more, let's say, dedicated financial structure.
Which brings us neatly to 2024. That's when the NDF itself was formally established.
Correct.
And this formalization, it seems, was tied to an update in the NPU's constitution, which apparently hadn't been updated since 1989.
Yeah, quite a while.
Yeah.
So that update provided the legal and structural foundation to create the NDF as this separate body focused specifically on plan development and security.
Okay, so it's like a dedicated funding arm now.
Pretty much. But the key thing to grasp is the deliberate link between the NDF and the NPU.
How does that work?
Well, the NDF's Board of Trustees, they manage the money independently, day to day. But, crucially, they are still accountable. They report back to the NPU's Executive Committee and also to the NPU General Assembly.
Right, so there's still that community oversight. Keeps it grounded.
Exactly. Ensures alignment with what the broader community needs and wants.
And there's another layer, too, isn't there? This NPU Tactical Think Tank Committee.
Yes, that's another important piece. They're the ones looking after the strategic side, the planning, how projects are actually implemented, and, monitoring progress.
Okay, so it's quite a layered approach.
Yeah.
Seems very intentional.
It does. Having an independent board for the finances and then this strategic committee for the projects, it suggests they're really trying to make sure things are run efficiently and are genuinely serving the community's best interests. Which, leads to the question, how do they actually define their big goals, their overall purpose?
Good question. That takes us straight to their vision and mission statements. The vision they lay out is, well, it's pretty ambitious.
What are they aiming for?
A self-sustaining and prosperous Nawfija. Opportunities for everyone, better living standards, a safe future. And the key is that it's driven by local action.
That's a powerful vision, emphasizing the economic side, the social progress, and that it comes from within. That self-sustaining part is key again, isn't it?
Yeah, it pops up a lot.
It really signals they're aiming to build local capacity, not just rely on outside help forever.
And the mission statement then spells out how they plan to achieve that vision. It talks about empowering the Nawfija community through sustainable social and business development.
Okay.
It's broad, covering resource development, human capital, economic growth, social progress, supporting security, and something they call excellent stewardship.
Right. So the mission gives the roadmap, resource development, people, economy, society, safety. And that excellent stewardship bit ties right back to the governance structure we were just talking about, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Responsible management. Now, underpinning all this activity, they have a set of core values. These kind of give you the feel for their guiding principles.
Always important. What are they?
First up is integrity, honesty, transparency, accountability. Pretty standard, but essential for a fund, right?
Absolutely vital. Builds trust.
Then there's community focus. So really prioritizing what the community actually needs. And they specifically mention things like youth and student training, career development, mentoring, using local talent, human capital deployment, they call it.
Okay, that's interesting. That focus on youth and local talent, that's a clear investment in the future. Strategic.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. Then sustainability, looking for those long-term community-friendly solutions. Innovation is in there too, being open to new ideas, new tech.
Good to see. Can't stand still.
Collaboration is another one, partnerships, working with others inside and outside Nawfija. Excellence, striving for high standards in what they do.
Makes sense.
And finally, this one's quite striking. Development hub. They actually state a core value is to project Nawfija as a regional, maybe even statewide, center for business, social infrastructure, recreation events. That's a big aspiration.
Wow, yeah, that is ambitious, development hub. But it shows really forward thinking, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, they're not just looking inwards. By aiming to be a hub, they're thinking about attracting investment, attracting opportunities from outside, which in turn feeds back into that sustainability goal.
Ah, I see. Creates a virtuous cycle. Pretending.
Contextually, yes.
Okay, so we understand the history, the vision, the values. How does this fund actually work day to day? We know it's not for profit, funding public projects via donations and grants. What about the structure, the governance in practice?
Well, structurally, it seems quite straightforward. The money they receive goes into a dedicated bank account.
Right.
And that account is overseen by the Board of Trustees we mentioned. Now, what's interesting is what they do with funds that aren't immediately needed for a project. Any uncommitted funds are put into low-risk investments. Think very secure things like government bonds or similar instruments.
Ah, okay. So they're not just letting the cash sit there, but they're also not taking big risks with it.
Exactly. It's about preserving the capital, maybe generating a small, safe return while it's waiting to be used for its intended purpose. It's a sensible, responsible way to manage the resources.
And speaking of responsibility, they seem very keen on transparency and accountability. They talk about monthly reports, yearly audited financial reports, plus a code of ethical conduct.
Yeah, that's huge in the nonprofit world. You absolutely need that openness. Committing to regular audited reports and clear ethical rules is how you build and maintain trust with donors and the community itself. Shows they're serious about stewardship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about this board of trustees. Who are they? How are they chosen?
The selection criteria they mention are pretty key. Integrity, obviously, financial know-how, leadership skills, and a real commitment to the Nawfija community.
A good mix.
Seems like it. And their main jobs are what you'd expect. Fundraising, figuring out investment strategies, approving how the money is spent, making sure everything's transparent, and preparing those reports we just mentioned.
Okay. And they have a patron, Igwe Clifford Siokeke, the Azoito One of Nawfija. Interesting to have that link to traditional leadership.
Yes, it often helps anchor such initiatives within the community's cultural context.
And the trustees themselves. There's a list here. Am Bezalaik is chairman. Chief Lawrence Agu, Chief Ikino Hanugo, Chief Sunday Madu are co-chairs. Quite a few leaders involved.
Suggests broad support, perhaps.
And then two names have a bit more detail. Mazi Emeka Henry Oakley. He's listed as a consultant financial advisor. And they highlight his credentials, FCA, Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria.
Okay, FCA, that's a serious financial qualification.
Yeah, it sounds like it. His background is in financial services, investment banking, strategy, automation. Seems like exactly the kind of expertise you'd want managing a fund like this.
Absolutely. Having someone with that level of financial acumen, experience with complex structures, large projects, that's a massive asset for the NDF's management and credibility.
And the other one highlighted is Barrister Don Immueller. He's a board member with a PhD in law, experienced in litigation, mediation, member of legal associations.
Right, so legal expertise covered too. Crucial for navigating regulations, contracts, any potential disputes. ensuring everything's done properly, legally speaking.
Makes sense. It seems they've deliberately sought out diverse professional skills for the board.
Yeah.
Finance, law, leadership.
It definitely points towards a strategic approach to building their leadership team.
Okay, so they have the structure, the people. Where does the money actually go? What are the key areas NDF is focusing its funding on? What kind of projects?
They outline several key areas, and they line up nicely with that vision and mission we talked about. Education and youth empowerment is a big one.
How so?
Improving school facilities, providing scholarships, skills development programs. It's that investment in the next generation again.
Right. Makes sense. What else?
Healthcare and well-being. So strengthening local health services, making them more accessible, generally promoting community health. A healthy community is a foundation for everything else.
Yeah.
Then there's economic growth and opportunity. This is about supporting local businesses, fostering entrepreneurship, and working towards that development hub idea we mentioned.
Okay. Directly linking to that value.
Exactly. Infrastructure development is another pillar. Things like clean water, sanitation, building community spaces. They see these not just as social goods, but as investments.
Foundational stuff. Can't do much without basic infrastructure.
Precisely. And they also include culture preservation and community building, celebrating local heritage, strengthening social ties. That's important for community cohesion.
Definitely. And the last one.
Security and community safety. Supporting local efforts to make sure Nawfija is a safe place to live and work. So it's really a holistic approach covering many different aspects of what makes a community thrive.
It certainly sounds comprehensive. And their approach to planning the projects seems quite rigorous, too.
How so?
Well, for each project, they detail specific things. A clear title, description, goals, objectives, even a risk assessment.
Okay, good. Thinking ahead about challenges.
An implementation plan. How they'll provide progress updates, the budget and funding sources, and importantly, the expected impact and outcomes. They even mention using audio visuals for monitoring.
Wow, that's quite detailed. That level of planning shows real professionalism. Defining everything up front, tracking progress, assessing risks, it increases the chances of success and, again, boosts accountability. Using audio visuals is a nice touch for transparency, too.
And we actually have a concrete example they provided, the Eek Market Development Project.
Ah, yes, the market rebuild.
We even saw some pictures, the demolition of the old market, and an AI-enhanced image of what the new one could look like. It really brings it to life, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Seeing a tangible project like the Eek Market makes their vision much more concrete. It's not just talk. It shows infrastructure development and economic revitalization in action.
Yeah, a very visible example. Now, it's clear the NDF knows it can't do all this alone. They're actively looking for partners. Why is collaboration so central for them?
Well, as they basically say themselves, their goals are ambitious. To really achieve that vision of a prosperous, self-sustaining Nawfija, they need teamwork.
Makes sense.
They recognize the value of bringing in different skills, extra resources, wider networks, especially from organizations that share that same kind of development vision.
Okay. And what's the pitch to potential partners? What are the benefits for an organization or individual who might want to team up with the NDF?
They highlight a few key things. One is making a tangible, measurable impact. You can see where your contribution is going.
Right.
Another is contributing to sustainable development goals, supporting initiatives that are genuinely community-led, and, of course, that commitment to transparency and accountability we keep coming back to.
And they also mentioned potential tax benefits, being a not-for-profit, though they do advise checking with tax advisors naturally.
Yes, that can be an important incentive for donors, both individuals and corporations. Overall, it's a compelling case. Clear impact, aligns with global goals, community-driven, transparent.
And they seem very open about how people can partner. It's not just about writing a check, is it?
Not at all. They outline a whole range of options. There's direct financial support, of course, one-off donations, recurring ones, funding specific projects, even endowment funding or matching grants.
Okay, standard financial routes.
But also crucial are in-kind contributions. Things like donating goods or supplies, medical stuff, educational materials, construction supplies, tech equipment.
Useful stuff on the ground.
Exactly. Or providing professional services, pro bono legal advice, consulting, marketing help, project assessment skills, even volunteer support.
So leveraging skills and time, not just money.
Precisely. They're also looking for technical assistance partners who can share expertise, help build local capacity, maybe collaborate on research. And then there's advocacy and awareness partners who can help spread the word about the NDF, lobby for supportive policies, help with PR.
Getting the message out.
And finally, strategic partnerships. This is about collaborating on bigger projects with other NGOs, government bodies, international agencies, maybe through formal agreements like memorandums of understanding or corporate social responsibility initiatives.
Wow. Okay. That's a very comprehensive partnership strategy.
Yeah.
They've really thought about all the different ways people and organizations could contribute.
It really seems so. By mapping out all these avenues, they're strategically trying to pull in a wide range of resources and expertise to maximize their impact. It's smart.
So for anyone listening who might be thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, maybe I want to help, how do they actually do that? How do they donate?
They make it pretty straightforward. Their website has Donate Now and Contact Us pages that guide you. And they've got a Google form, which is quite user-friendly. It lists all those different ways to contribute. We just discussed the one-off donation, monthly, project-specific, endowment, matching grant, in-kind, technical help, advocacy, strategic partnership. We're just making a general inquiry.
So plenty of options, easy to find.
Seems designed to be accessible, yes.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive on the Nawfija Development Fund, what's the main takeaway for you? The big picture insight?
I think the strongest impression for me is that this is a genuinely community-led initiative. It grew organically from a grassroots response to a crisis, the NGM, and has evolved into this really well-structured, quite ambitious development fund with a very clear long-term vision for Nawfija.
Yeah.
It seems built on solid values, especially that commitment to transparency and collaboration. They're not just patching holes. They're strategically investing across different sectors for the long haul.
It really does sound like a dedicated, well-thought-through effort by the community for the community. And, it makes you think, well, about how this kind of model, a development fund rooted so deeply in local collaboration, focused squarely on lasting impact, could potentially be an inspiration elsewhere for other regions facing similar challenges.
That's a great point. A potential model.
Yeah. And it leaves you with a question, really. What are the absolute must-have ingredients for a community-led model like this to not just survive, but actually thrive and create that significant lasting change? Something to chew on, perhaps, as people maybe explore the NDF's website a bit more. It really highlights the power of collective action, doesn't it?
It certainly does. A lot to think about there.